And welcome back to the OHIO podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Buckeye Boggs. That man over there, you know him as the Wild Man, Chris Wilds. And tonight, Chris, we're going to talk about the new, I guess you could say, um
Format?
model, the college playoff model. It was a 6+6 model before, and of course, with
Yep.
the funeral of the Pac-12, or what we know as the Pac-12, thanks in large part to mostly the Big Ten. Uh, it has now been turned over to a 5+7 model for 2 years.
Till the
And
4+8 kicks in.
well, we're going to talk about that at the end of this. At the end of this, because that's coming down. That's coming down the pike. It's well, either that or it's going to be a 4+10 model.
Yeah.
Anyways, what this means is this. Let me break it down for you as simple as I can. There will be five conference champions who automatically get bids to the CFP. Those conferences are the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, and one highest ranked group of five conference champion. Those are the five auto bids. Now, from those five, the committee will choose the top four to get buys in the first round. More than likely, those four teams will normally be from the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12. However, there is a chance that one conference does so poorly and there is a really, really good group of five team that goes undefeated, wins their conference championship, and is actually ranked higher than one of the Power Five champions. It happened before. The year Cincinnati went to the college football playoff,
Yeah.
they
Cincinnati,
were
Pitt.
yes, Pitt was in the ACC, and they were ranked 15th, and Cincinnati was ranked much higher than them, like fourth, and Cincinnati got to
Pitt
go.
won the ACC and was ranked number 12.
Okay, so taking that into account, it's not impossible for a group of five to get a bye, but it is very unlikely. Okay. Now, there's been a lot of talk. Does the group of five automatically get the number fifth seed? No, they will not. After that, teams 6 through 12 will be based off of the CFP's rankings. Okay, the College Football Playoff Committee's rankings. This all comes down from the fact that the CFP um, management committee, who is meeting currently, came up with this model and agreed to it. That committee is comprised of the 10 conference commissioners and the Notre Dame athletic director, which I find incredibly
Odd man out.
unfair. I really do. Because that guy's not walking into that committee with the mindset of I'm here for Notre Dame and all the other independent schools in the country. He's there for Notre Dame, where
No,
all
he's
these
here for
other
Notre Dame.
conference commissioners are representing all the schools that are in their conference. So obviously, given who that committee's made up of, you knew the group of five was going to get an auto bid.
Yes.
Okay. That's number one. Number two, what do we know is that the SEC and the Big Ten commissioners in this little alliance that they have came up with, this is all about two things. Number one, money. Number two, getting more schools from their conference in to the tournament, which is going to mean, again, more money. This all boils down to
Yes.
money. Okay.
It has for
Um,
years, Eric.
it really has. So knowing this is what we know. That is finalized. It's going to be for 2 years. We also know that they have discussed today, although nothing was finalized, that in 2026, so 2 years from now, they might move to a different model that comprises of 14 teams instead of 12, which is a 7 and 7, which is mean you're going to see two teams. They're going to break up the bracket, and two teams will get buys, not
Mhm.
four. And you can see where the Big Ten and the SEC is going with this. So, looking at this prospectively from a national perspective first, we'll do Ohio State second, and then we'll talk about what I think is the juicy stuff. From a national perspective, if I am the Big 12 or I am the ACC commissioner, I am fighting like heck to make sure that my conference is just one step below the Big 10 and SEC. Because what's going to happen is those two behemoths are going to run this thing. And you need to be in their good graces to continue to collect some kind of paycheck in the postseason. And I'm afraid, given what's going on with the ACC and Florida State, that the ACC is going to be pulled apart, that this is going to break the ACC apart. Your thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, and I've actually discussed this with several people online today, Eric. You're 100% right. You're going to have a Big Ten division. You're going to have an AC or a I'm sorry, an SEC division. Basically, is what this is going to boil down to. Now you're going to have other teams in there, but let's face it, your SEC champion, your Big Ten champion, those are going to be those two buys when we eventually move that 14 team format, which, by the way, is very similar to the NFL format. Something that we've kind of been predicting. Yeah, I mean, this was a major power play, and it was a power play, I think, on the part of the Big Ten and the SEC that's been in the works for a few months now. They knew that this was going to have to be renegotiated, especially with the destruction of the Pac-12. You've got Florida State, who is looking to get out. They're going to join the Big Ten. You got North Carolina. You've got Clemson and possibly Virginia, who are all looking to get out. The only hope of what's left of the ACC is to merge with the Big 12 and try to make a third, somewhat power conference. That is really the only hope for those schools, I think, at this point. Um, and then obviously, you look at a team like Notre Dame, and you're talking now, in theory, Notre Dame can be no better than the sixth seed. They're going to have to play an extra game.
They can still be the fifth seed.
Now, got to be a conference champion.
No, you don't. Just your four. Your top four are conference champions, and then after that, though, out of the five, they got your power four, right? ACC,
Right?
SEC, Big Ten, and Big 12, and then you have your top group of five champions.
That's yeah.
They are not auto five. They are not. They have the opportunity to be in the top four, but they are not guaranteed fifth. I confirmed that today.
Okay, because the way I was understanding is Notre Dame could be no better than sixth, is what.
They can still be fifth.
But even at fifth,
They don't get a bye.
they don't get a bye.
Correct.
So Notre Dame is going to have to play an extra game, which really to them is not an extra game because they don't have a conference championship game. But still, at that point, to make that run is going to be more difficult for a team like Notre Dame.
Can I explain to you why they didn't make that fifth spot an auto group of five champion? They didn't want that team hosting a home
Yes, a
game.
playoff game.
It's
Exactly. They don't want it.
let's
It's not going
let
to prevent, or it's not going to have the revenue
correct.
of a major school. So,
Yeah, more than likely they're going to be going to one of the big houses to.
and don't think for a minute that this wasn't the Big Ten, the SEC, and even some of the other conferences like the ACC forcing Notre Dame's hand. The ACC
Well,
knows Notre Dame can come in and save
we'll
the
get there.
ACC,
I've got a great
but
analogy that explains all of this for all of you. We'll get
but
there.
yes,
But nationally, the national perspective is you have ACC and Big 12 trying to fight to get at the big table.
and
And
it's just
right
not going to
now,
happen. Not with the schools that are in the
the
two big
the
conferences.
Big 12 is in a better spot
Yes.
to
Well, yeah,
have
because half the teams are looking to leave the ACC.
exactly.
The ACC is going to be the next dead conference.
The Big 12's got a better TV deal.
Yep.
I think they've got better they have better potential as far as looking at the champion who could come out of there.
Yeah.
Now, historically, the ACC's had Clemson, who's been good. They're not.
Oh, we
They're not
broke
the
them.
same Clemson. They're not the same Clemson.
No.
And Florida State last year should have been in the college football playoff and didn't even have a seat in the
And I'll tell you,
four.
that kind of, I think, told you a lot right there.
It did.
It told you where the ACC is valued among the college football playoff
They
committee.
were behind the Pac-12
Yes.
that they knew was in there last year.
Yes.
I mean, come on. Like the ACC is right now they are trying to scratch and claw, and right now it feels like they're turning amongst themselves.
Yes.
And
That's exactly what's happened.
Florida State's leading that charge, and I commend them. They're looking out for themselves. Why wouldn't they?
They have to, Eric. They have to, because nobody else is going to look out for them. And I think uh, when you look at what happened with Notre Dame today, you saw that with this announcement of this new playoff alignment. You saw that if you were not the Big Ten, or let's put it, the days of being a Notre Dame or a Florida State or Miami and living off of your reputation and thinking that people need you, that the college football needs you to be better. That's not going to be the case anymore. I mean, you look at the NCAA; they got no bite. The CFP, they're going to have to cater to the Big Ten and the SEC
It sure feels
because
like that's what's happening.
those two
Yeah.
conferences now hold all the cards.
Yeah.
There is no more, Notre Dame playing up off their reputation because you know what? You took off the Big Ten and the ACC or the SEC. They just basically take their ball, go home, create their own playoff between themselves, have the two mega conferences, and they leave all these other schools behind.
So
And they've got the star power in those schools to do it.
so college football realignment is not done by a long
Absolutely not.
shot. It's not done by a long shot. It has been I am hearing from so many people, Chris, even on national media, that the Big Ten wants 24 teams.
And I've been saying that for a year, Eric.
That's six more. That's six
Yes,
more teams.
I thought
Um,
both those power conferences would end up at 24.
so and there's nothing that says they might not poach the best team from the Big 12 either. They might say, "Hey, we'll take two or three from the ACC. We're going to take one from the Big 12." And well, if there's a team in South Bend, Indiana that's interested, and by this point might feel like they need to join a conference, we have a spot for you as well. So looking at this nationally, I think the next 2 years you're going to hear a lot of rumors. You're going to see a lot of jostling back and forth between these conferences, and then one overnight, boom, it's going to happen. You're going to hear where certain teams are leaving a conference, just like we heard from the Pac-12 when the LA schools left, and that created the domino effect. When there are certain schools leave the ACC, that's going to create the domino effect. That's what's going to happen next. Let's look at this from the perspective of Ohio State. Ohio State's expectations every single year from this year, beginning this year, moving on. You better be in the playoff every year.
Absolutely.
If you're not, failed season.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. If you cannot be one of the top 12 teams in college football, and in saying that, I understand that really it comes down to being one of the top, what, 9 teams, really, because 3 are going to go to other conference champions. So
Four are
you've
going to
got to
go to other
be,
conference champions. You
well,
need
no,
to.
yes, 4 are going to go to other conference. So you got to be one of the top 8 teams, either within your own conference or nationally outside of those
You need to be.
champions.
You need to be. I worked out the math today. You need to go at least 10-2 every single year,
And
and
that's
be the
still unacceptable to Ohio State.
and be the no worse than the third best in the Big Ten. And if you're first or second, you're going. And if you're let's work out the math. Let's look at 2023 for instance.
Okay.
Michigan was 12-0. Oregon was 11-1. Let's say those were the two teams that played in the Big Ten championship, and Ohio State was 11-1 on the outside. They're in
Well, yeah,
as the
absolutely.
third best team, right? So the only time I think Ohio State has anything to worry about is if they're 10-2 and there's two spots for three teams and that third team is Notre Dame at 10-2. Then you might have to worry at that point. But more than likely, I believe, given the power of the Big Ten and SEC, that they would take Ohio State over Notre Dame if they had the
Yeah.
same records. Now, what will be interesting is the argument of strength of schedule at that point. If it comes down to strength of schedule, will the reputation of the new Big Ten being what it is and will that push them over the edge against Notre Dame to say that's why you get in and Notre Dame doesn't?
It will,
Could
but also look at this, Eric. The Big Ten now controls, in a sense, Notre Dame's strength of schedule.
a little bit.
You look at their rivalries, and the Big Ten really kind of controls their strength of schedule.
Yeah, if they say to Notre Dame, none of our teams are going to play you, including SC. Who
Yeah,
you gonna I
your
mean, you're gonna
schedule's
have
down
to
the toilet
go schedule a bunch of SEC schools.
if they'll do it,
Good luck.
because the SEC could be saying, you know what, join us or we're cutting you off too.
So watch this. So if you have one Big Ten team
Yep.
champion, you got one ACC, you got one SEC, you got one Big 12, you got one group of five. All right, so we're up to five already. You have seven more spots. Let's take two more from the Big Ten. Okay, that gives us seven. Let's take three more from the SEC. That gives us 10. All right, now you have two spots left. You're looking at the second best from either the Big 12 and ACC, maybe. You're looking at Notre Dame. You're looking at maybe another SEC or Big 10 team. That's really what it's going to boil down to is those teams that are between 8 and 11 in ranking for those two spots.
Yeah.
And what's going to determine that? Record? If it's record, then um, there's no advantage of going out and scheduling a difficult schedule.
Right. Right.
It's especially if you're going to be playing, a difficult schedule within your conference, which as the conferences get
Yeah.
bigger, you mark it down. You're going to see
Which
less and less.
which has been a big criticism of both the Big Ten and the SEC is the fact that they like, especially the SECs, they like to schedule the cupcakes,
Right.
especially a week before rivalry week.
But given Ohio State's perspective, we expect to go every year. And if we don't go,
Absolutely.
that is a failure and people are going to be calling for the head coach's head. Okay?
Yes.
Unless he has a great record, he wins a couple national championships, and then it's like, okay, we had to rebuild 1 year. We get it. But you hear every national pundit who's talking about this, they all pencil Ohio State in almost a guaranteed every single year. Georgia, they're saying Georgia. People are still saying Bama, LSU. Three or four SEC teams every year, three guaranteed, and probably they'll rotate amongst that fourth one is what we're hearing a lot of. Like this past year, you probably would have got Missouri. Maybe LSU
You're
would
going
have
to
been
have
fighting.
Georgia, Bama typically, and then
Yep,
a third from that next
LSU,
tier, whether
Ole
it's
Miss,
LSU, Ole Miss. Yeah.
Florida if they can ever learn how to tie their shoes again. Tennessee if they can bounce back. There's going to be options, and let's not forget Texas and Oklahoma.
That's right, who have now joined.
Right. So if you had Texas from last year, that's an SEC team, right? So let's
Yep.
let's put that in perspective as well. So given that perspective, I'm giving SEC one more team than the Big Ten just because I think they have more upper echelon teams than the Big Ten does currently. But with the addition of the four big schools from out west, the SEC or excuse me, the Big Ten's reputation, that gap between the SEC and the Big Ten as far as reputation is concerned, actually got a little closer. But what you don't hear is the ACC and the Big 12 in that conversation.
Yeah. The
Okay.
rich got richer and the poor got poorer in this one.
Yes. All right. Now, let's talk about what you really want to talk about. How does this force Notre Dame's hand to join a conference? Well, I've had some conversations with some Notre Dame people, and I straight up asked them, would Notre Dame be willing to go all in with the ACC? And their answer is no. Um, if Notre Dame were to decide, even if Florida State were to leave, but Notre Dame would decide, hey, we're all in with the ACC, it could help to save that conference. But it's not going to happen. Here's why. Their current deal with NBC as an independent is better than what they would get as a member with the
By
ACC.
far.
Okay.
It's
So
not
they're
even
not.
close, Eric.
So even though the rest of their sports minus hockey is playing in the ACC, they're not going to join in football.
No.
That's not going to happen. So the ACC cannot count on Notre Dame to come save them. So that means this: if Notre Dame is satisfied with trying to win a national championship without a bye, they're going to stay independent. How long until they're no longer satisfied with that and they have a 12-0 season and they're ranked 2 or 3rd in the country and yet they don't get a bye?
Yeah.
When
Yeah,
when
it's
that
gonna happen.
happens, when that happens and they go crying to the college football playoff committee, they're going to look at them and be like, join a
Join a
conference.
conference. Which,
Sorry
if you
about your
remember
luck.
right, Eric, this is exactly what the CFP committee did to the Big 12. Because the Big 12 hung on for a long time without a conference championship game, and they
Yes.
were often getting left out of the CFP because they didn't play that championship game.
2014, Ohio State's last national championship, a large part was because TCU and Baylor didn't play each other again. They were
Yes,
co-champions, and it allowed Ohio State, who played the conference championship against Wisconsin,
to
it gave
leapfrog.
to leapfrog them because the committee watched that 56 to nothing blowout, and they went, "Whoa, that's the fourth best team." If
Yep.
TCU and Baylor would have played, the winner of that game would have been fourth, and Ohio State would have been fifth, and on the outside looking in. So yes, they will force your hand. If and money is going to have a lot to do with that. That's one of the things that the Big Ten and the SEC are saying is, hey, we're bigger, stronger, we've got more teams. It means more to us. We deserve more money. And
And
you
they're
know what
right.
the college football playoff committee is going to do? They're
Give
going to
them
say
more
yes,
money.
master. You know
That's
why?
right.
Because if the SEC and the Big Ten say we're going to go play our own, then see you guys later, it completely depletes so many things, including those
Well,
contracts.
yeah, you take 50 of the top teams out of the basically away from the college NCAA if you do that.
Yeah.
You,
So
you know, it's
so
that's what I was saying. They've got all the power right now. The two
right.
conferences have all the power. They don't need the NCAA. They don't need the CFP. The CFP and the NCAA needs them.
All right. So here's what's coming down the pike next. So I think Notre Dame's going to join a conference eventually. How long they hold on to their independence? It's going to be at
I
least
give
two
it
more
5 years.
years.
I give it 5 years at
I
most.
don't think they're going. They're not going anywhere in the next 2 years. I don't think. But the next contract, when that happens, and they go to a 5+9 model, and it's 14 teams, and the Big Ten is 24 teams, and the SEC is however many teams
And
with
then you're taking
guaranteed
half the teams from those two conferences,
was which is they're guaranteed. It's
or
going
more than
to
that. You're
eventually get to. I don't know if it's going to be in our lifetime. It's eventually going to get to the NFC and the AFC. You're going to have two divisions. How long
I think
Big
it's
12
closer than
can
you think, Eric.
do you really?
10 years. That's how
Maybe.
fast I think. I think that's how fast the landscape of college
Well, look at how different
football is
college football
changing.
looked. Look at how different college football looked 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You had no NIL. You had no transfer portal. The
You
Big
just were
Ten,
kicking off the first year of the CFP, coming
yeah,
off of the BCS.
right. You had the Big Ten was actually only 12 teams as
Yeah.
opposed to 18. there was still a Pac-12, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there college football was very, very different. You might be right. You might be right. What do you all think? Let us know in the comments section below. How long is it going to take for this to take effect? Will Notre Dame be joining a conference? If they do, is it going to be the Big Ten? I just don't see them going to the SEC, but maybe their hatred for Michigan and the whole reason why they're independent to begin with because of Michigan causes them to never want to join with the Big Ten. I don't know. There is no such thing as
That
regionality anymore.
that's
So
weak, Eric. Get in there and whoop that backside. Don't cry about it. Don't avoid it. Get in there and whoop that backside if you don't like Michigan.
I like that. Yes, that's what you should do. I agree. Um, like, share, subscribe. We really do appreciate it. Ring the bell so you get notified every time we have a video. And when we go live, we go live every Sunday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. Next week,
The
on Leap
29th.
Day, the 29th, call-in show. Chris and I on a Thursday night. It's going to be wild. The wild man going to take some phone calls. It's going to be crazy. Make sure you're a part of that. If you're a Buckeye fan or a big college football fan, we want you to be a part of that. All right, Chris, till next time, be kind to one another. I owe someone's OH, St. Carmen High with all your heart. OH.
I hope.
Go Bucks.